Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Avexia webinar series. Our topic for today is Getting to Yes, Overcome I Can't Afford It, and Other Objections to Book High Fee Clients Now. My name is Christopher Chu. I am the Director of Marketing for Avexia Diagnostics and will be your host. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of being joined by an exciting guest, Lesli Bitel, who will be our presenter for this webinar. Lesli Bitel is a sought-after business strategist and mentor specializing in guiding integrative and functional medicine professionals through the complexities of practice building. With a rich background as a highly trained dietitian and extensive experience in pharmaceutical and diagnostic testing industries, Lesli uniquely combines the clinical expertise with business acumen. For over a decade, she has empowered practitioners to overcome business challenges, attract ideal clients, and diversify income streams for thriving practices. Lesli offers private coaching, classes, webinars, and more, dividing her time between Salida, Colorado, and Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Without further delay, I will now turn the webinar over to Lesli.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to my webinar here called Getting to Yes, Overcome I Can't Afford It, and Other Objections to help you to book high fee clients now. All right, so let's talk a little bit about why I created this masterclass for you. So as a starting point, I'd like you to try to imagine what would it feel like to be able to effortlessly fill your client roster with, here's the caveat, high quality, committed, long-term clients anytime you wish, to make peace with selling, to not get super stressed out and feel awkward when talking about money, to no longer fumble and stumble when you share your pricing on your packages, to have authentic consultations that book 80% of the time, and to, again, no longer stress out and no longer question whether or not you should be in private practice or go out and get a job. How does that sound? Pretty good, right? Well, that's awesome because today we are going to help you accomplish all of the above. I could literally guarantee if you apply the steps that I'm going to cover with you today, I really strongly believe that you will be well on your way to this future. So let's talk just briefly about why we are talking about sales. This training is really all about the critical puzzle pieces that you must have in place to consistently and effectively be able to sell your services. Because at the end of the day, you want to be helping lots of great people, helping, there's so many people out there that need our assistance and help. And you want to be able to effectively sell your services. And of course, we want to make a great income while we're doing it, right? Because if you're not doing well and taking good care of yourself financially, you're not going to be in a good place, right? Pretty evident. You're not going to be able to help the people that you want to help and create any semblance of balance in your own life. So, why did I decide to talk about sales in this particular webinar today? Well, honestly, it's because it's one of the biggest complaints that I hear from a variety of health and wellness professionals, especially those who are wanting to move into providing programs and packages versus the a la carte methodology, right? That a la carte, one session at a time model that we are often trained in. So people are sharing with me that, they pour their hearts and souls into, these initial consultations, invite their respective clients into the next step, oftentimes a package or program that whereby we're rolling in certain labs, right? It's kind of an all-inclusive type of a business model. However, their clients are just not jumping in, right? They are not jumping in and they're not saying yes to these longer term programs and packages. And believe me, I know what that's like. I remember, in my early days of private practice, just being so excited knowing I could help someone. over the long run. And then I would, kind of get let down with, I have to think about it. Or maybe they'd come in for a session or two and just kind of fall off, right? Before I really had an opportunity to help them. So that is really kind of the background on why the sales process is so critical. And here's the reality. I don't think, for the most part, now I'm all about continuing education, right? Absolutely. However, it's often that business side of building a private practice that is overlooked, right? We don't get a lot of this kind of entrepreneurial training in our educational process. So I really want to emphasize that in order to really be successful, achieve that sense of balance that I know you're seeking, to get more yeses, to move into packages and programs where you can help people over the long run, absolutely, we do need to nail your consultation process, right? And really move into a place where we have a semblance of feeling comfortable in that process. All right. So in this masterclass, I am going to show you how to make that ultimate shift from stressing out and feeling uncertain about booking clients to having a clear roadmap. I'm going to share with you a roadmap today to help you to get more yeses. And I'm going to teach you what needs to happen and exactly how to do it to turn your consultations, i.e. discovery calls, into happy, eager, long-term, highly committed clients. So how's that sound? All right. So a little bit of background on why I'm so passionate about helping other practitioners achieve success in their own respective private practices. So probably just like you, I come from a long journey, very passionate about health and wellness, eventually earned degrees in both dietetics. I'm a registered dietitian and also have a degree in exercise physiology. And, in my experience, eventually I came upon a crossroads where I knew I either had to go out and get a job or I needed to really ramp things up in my own private practice, right? I really, really was at that point. So I also understood how critical it was to really, to master the business side, the marketing and the sales of developing a successful wellness practice. So, bottom line, I jumped in full force, got my MBA in global business, and really during this time learned a ton about sales, the psychology of selling, and eventually worked 13 years in 3 Fortune 500 companies. Got a lot of great experience there. Eventually, again, started my own private practice in nutrition, and I was able to break into the world of corporate wellness as well. Delved into functional nutrition, went through some training programs there to sharpen my skills, and eventually really decided to specialize in helping patients suffering from neurological disorders. So at this point in my career, now over the past decade, I've dedicated my career to being in this current role of business coaching and as a business strategist for other healthcare practitioners. I've had at least over 1,000 consultations at this point, and I really feel like I've mastered that the sales process, and I thoroughly enjoy that sense of freedom, that confidence that provides. And the best part, I think, is that I've distilled down my proven system for selling, right? Very tried and true. And that is what I'm going to be sharing with you today. So now I'm in a place where I, can count on, a certain number of consultations, moving forward, right? It's not such a big guessing game as compared to what it used to be. I have consistent income. This is a photo of me and my kiddos on a recent trip to Spain. And the reason I share this is because, just to illustrate the flexibility and the freedom that being, really garnering that sense of confidence will instill. And I am really wanting the same thing for you. I hear it all the time. I don't have this sense of balance. I feel like I can't leave my practice. So that's really what we want to try to kind of turn around today, right? All right, so let's talk about specifically what you're going to learn in this masterclass. I've got a lot of great content to share. So we're going to talk about the 3 critical pillars to help you to recession-proof your practice that must happen in that initial consultation, and the why in order to get more yeses. We're going to talk about the number 1 biggest mistake that wellness professionals make and how to get focused effectively on revenue. So I'm going to share some very simple math here that I think is going to illustrate this point pretty effectively. Very much looking forward to sharing my simple 6-step formula to help you to develop that steady stream of awesome committed clients and getting to yes in a single conversation, regardless of price or regardless of insurance. And then let's kick things off and have a conversation around something that I think is really, really important and honestly often overlooked. Kind of a foundational element that I would like to just spend a minute or two talking about. And that is, bottom line is tracking and mastering your conversion numbers. I would love to know how many people in our audience today actually track, right? My guess is probably not a lot. So in other words, we are tracking your consultations, right? Like the number of people that come to you, the number of people you speak with, and your closure rate. So it's incredibly important to kind of know where you stand in that process, because I really feel strongly your numbers will tell a story, and these numbers allow you to clear a path for catapulting your income. So let's dig into this concept a little bit deeper. So let's first just kind of define, what do we mean when we talk about conversion rate? So very simple math, as you can see, but a conversion rate is simply a ratio. It's the number of people who say yes from your consults compared to the total number of consults offered. So quick example, I do 4 consults or discovery calls. 1 person says yes to my high ticket package, and that is my closure rate. Obviously 25%, right? Pretty easy. If I get 1 out of 3 yeses, well, then my closure rate goes up to 33%. All right, so now let's say I get a yes to my high ticket package from 1 out of 2 consults. Obviously, that is a 50% conversion rate. And if I really ramp up my sales skills and become even more comfortable and confident in this process, if I get 4 out of 5 yeses, that's an 80% conversion rate, right? So pretty straightforward. Now what I want to do is attach these numbers to income, just so you can see how this has it's directly correlated to your revenue and the amount of work that you need to put in if you can increase your conversion rates, right? So let's say hypothetically, you've got this amazing, let's just pull out a number out of thin air, $2,000 one-on-one program, and your conversion rate is 25%. So obviously, if you talk to 4 people at this conversion rate, you're going to make 2,000, and on up. If you talk to 20 people, 5 sales, $10,000, right? So that's a 25% conversion rate. Now, if we keep all the other variables the same, but we continue to work on improving our conversion rate, you can see how this really has a direct impact on your income. So in this example, we still have the $2,000 package. However, we've got a 50% conversion rate. So now you only have to talk to 2 people, get 1 sale, and make 2,000, right? And on the other side of the spectrum, knowing and just feeling confident that you have this process nailed, you can now plan ahead to, talk to 10 people, do 10 consultations or discovery calls, get 5 sales at a 50% conversion rate, and bank 10K. Okay. So now let's say you're like, okay, I want to bump this price up. You can see how that has this direct impact. So now we have a $5,000 package at a 50% conversion rate, and you can see how that impacts the numbers. Obviously, you have much more opportunity to ramp up your revenue, right? You talk to 2 people, you get 1 sale, you can make 5K. And on the other side of the spectrum, you talk to 12 people with that conversion rate, you're in pretty good shape, right? So obviously your goal is to increase your conversion rate. And of course, really make sure that you are getting paid a fair amount, right? So obviously, if we can increase the number of yeses you're getting, here's the bottom line. You can essentially cut back on the number of discovery calls necessary to reach those financial goals, right? And that is really the main point that I want to make there. So hopefully that we illustrated that point well for you. Just the incredible impact, really being good at sales has how it can have such a direct impact on your revenue and your numbers. All right. Okay, so now let's clarify the difference between marketing and sales. This is a very common point of confusion. All right, guys. So marketing is essentially how people find you, right? Marketing is how they find you. It's how you get in front of your ideal audience and how you establish yourself as an expert. And there are limitless options in terms of marketing strategy, right? In terms of how people can find you. And honestly, they all have an important role. And I hope you're doing many of these things. So obviously, let's start with websites in the upper left corner here. And I have to say, building a website is great, but oftentimes, and I can speak from experience here, it's not the end all be all, right? It doesn't necessarily, lead to a huge crowd rushing to get through the door. There's many online strategies that we can talk about, everything from, email marketing, all kinds of, strategies like that. But that in of itself isn't usually the thing that triggers someone to actually buy from you, right? So the idea here is you have to move your people, your followers, from just being a fan to being a buyer. Okay. And that is an important distinction. And honestly, it's the same with social media, right? Very excellent strategy to increase your reach, and it's amazing that we have that opportunity in this day and age to leverage social media in that way. We're able to get in front of so many more people than we otherwise would have access to. However, most often, again, it's not until you engage these followers into a deeper dive conversation do they convert into buyers, right? And same with networking, right? Going to networking groups, social events where maybe your clients are hanging out, giving talks, all that sort of thing. The thing I want to point out is every single one of these is a great way to get in front of your ideal clients. Okay. It's a great way to be initially found. And it's also a great way, all of these things are great strategies to establish credibility. And by far, that's half of the puzzle here. But here's the caveat but for them to buy, it's a different story. For them to actually hire you and step in and entrust their health with you, especially over an elongated period of time in programs and packages, well, I got to tell you, it all converges to the one-on-one consultation, right? It absolutely does. And especially as your price point increases, if we're rolling labs into these packages and programs, it is going to be really important that you have a sense of comfort and you've got a strategy behind these consultations. So what is the biggest mistake out there that I have witnessed over last 10, 12 years? By far, the biggest, most common error that most well-meaning health professionals make, and this is so very important, it is winging it, right? Absolutely. And let me explain a little bit about what I mean by winging it. It means that you go into this conversation, this discovery call, really with no structure, no plan. You might share a little bit about yourself, your work, cross your fingers and, hope and pray essentially that you're going to be impressive enough and compelling enough that the person on the other end says, "Oh my gosh, you're so great. I want to work with you." Right? "Here's my credit card. When do we start?" But winging it gets you into so much trouble because there is a purpose to this consultation and there is a very specific framework that is going to help you to be effective, and it will not be met by winging it. All right, so what should you do instead? Well, no surprise. Um, I do want to stress that instead of winging it and hoping for the best, you need to have a systematic and strategic enrollment consult that follows a proven process. And this means there's a system, a sequence of the conversation, right? Um, if you expect the other person is going to take action and buy from you, it really does need to hit on some points that we're going to go through in detail today. So you're going to want to take this person on a journey with you, believe it or not, during that consultation where they are able to be able to imagine what is possible for them. So now I want to move into a really critical piece of what we're going to discuss today. And these are the three pillars, I would say these are psychological pillars of an effective exploratory consultation. Okay. All right. Number one, they absolutely must understand the gravity of their problems and the true cost of being stuck. So the bottom line is we need to dig deeper in terms of how this health problem that they're grappling with is impacting and spilling over into other silos of their life. Okay. We have to dig deeper. It can't just be, "I'm tired," right? "I wake up tired," or, we need to dig deeper beyond those initial symptoms. "Okay, you're tired. So tell me, how is that impacting your day-to-day living? How is that getting in your way? What is that costing you?" Right? So they have to understand the gravity of their problems and the true cost of being stuck. Number two, they've got to recognize that your services are the bridge to the solution they are seeking. So you've got to become adept at positioning what you offer, your services, as the bridge, as the relief, as the solution to their struggles, right? So your services have to be seen as the path between where they are now, the pain and struggle, to where they want to end up, where things are, where they're in transformation, resolution. So again, your services must be viewed as the bridge and the path to solution. All right. Now, the third critical point or critical pillar especially from a psychological standpoint, is your potential client, they must be inspired to take action now. All right. So very important not to say, "You know what, it sounds great, Lesli, but I'll let you know in a few months," or, "It sounds good. Maybe this summer would be better time," right? So they have to know in their bones that they need to take action now. All right. So we have to create a little bit of sense of urgency. And that is really the intent of an effective consultation, right? So those are the three critical pillars that you need to hit to increase your conversion rate, to get more yeses. And um, and again, this is really all about buying psychology. And that is why it's so critical. So in a moment, I'm going to share what this looks like in an actual consultation. All right. So now I'm really looking forward to sharing with you my 6-step enrollment formula that I teach about the journey of a powerful initial consultation. So I've broken this entire process down into 6 very doable steps, very, very clear and doable steps. All right. All right. So let's go through these steps together so that you have a clear understanding. So the first step is all about mindset. And this step actually occurs before you get on the video or phone call with your prospective client. And it doesn't just mean, have confidence and be positive. I think it's a mindset that I really want you to keep in mind, keep to the forefront of your mind as you get on that call with a potential client. And that is what a lot of people struggle with, honestly, is they are fearful that they're going to come across as salesy and that they're going to end up asking the person for money, right? And it really tends to trip us up. So what I am suggesting here is that you kind of erase that from your mind and remind yourself you are not getting on the call to ask them for money, right? Instead, what are you doing? You are providing hope. Okay. You are providing hope. You're providing solutions and relief. So instead of being all awkward and worried about talking about money, try to erase that thought from your mind and instead think about how you are really providing relief for that person should they decide to jump in with you. And you're providing a solution that they otherwise would not know about, right? And the thing it's so important to remember is your people, your patients, your clients are suffering. They're struggling. They are looking for a solution. Otherwise, you wouldn't be having this conversation in the first place, right? So it really is a very important mindset shift that needs to occur before you get on that call. The other thing I want to remind you about is the importance of fully owning the value of your services before you engage in any conversation like this. So, if you are in a place of lack of confidence, the reality is, unfortunately, you do tend to telegraph that to the person on the other side. So, you really have to get crystal clear on the value of your services and what it is worth to help your patients and clients get unstuck from where they are, right? So when you can really own that worth, you can move into a consultation like this really from a place of leadership. And once you're in the right winning mindset, the place you're going to want to go first in the real-time consultation is the second step. And let me share that with you right now. So the second step is all about uncovering the pain. All right. So here we want to help your potential client deepen their understanding of the true impact of their challenges, how it is influencing other areas of their life. And I alluded to this a little bit earlier. The reality is, here's the truth. I'm sure many of you can relate to this. People in general, and I know there's exceptions, probably most of us on this call today are the exception in that we are into prevention, right? We want to prevent illness before it kicks in. Unfortunately, your average person, your average consumer doesn't look at things that way, right? Honestly, most people, if I were to generalize, and again, acknowledging exceptions to the rule, but the truth is most people don't take action until they're in pain, until they're suffering, until they're struggling, right? And if you can do this part well, uncovering the pain, you're very far ahead of the curve. Let me just say that. So, for example, when someone comes to me in my practice as a business strategist and coach, they usually share that their frustration is, it's interesting, it's either one of two things. Like, I either don't have enough clients and I'm not getting enough yeses, or it's the opposite extreme. I have too many one-on-one clients and I don't have a life. I need to scale. Right? So those are kind of the extremes. So, however, I would say those are surface level complaints, right? So what I need to do is probe deeper and find out what that means to them on a deeper level, right? So, what are you missing out on? How is this impacting you? How's it impacting your relationships? How's it impacting, your pocketbook, right? Your life balance, your ability to take vacation and do the things that bring you joy, right? So that is what we need to do. We have to dig at least a layer or two deeper to find out the implications, right? How is this problem? How is this spilling over? What is this costing them? Right. All right. So when I'm able to explore the impact of not, either A, not having enough clients, not enough money coming in, or again, that opposite end of the spectrum, having too many one-on-ones and knowing they need to scale. Um, Oftentimes some interesting things come up, right? Like it's impacting the marriage. It's causing stress in their household, right? It's, causing them to run around like crazy, maybe get multiple jobs. Maybe they're moonlighting until they can actually get enough clients in their private practice. I see that quite often too. So do you see how much deeper the conversation is now? So that's what I want you to try to do. Um, Deepen the person's awareness of the impact and cost of their health struggles, right? And usually this conversation will start at a very surface level, right? It's your job to ask them deepening questions. How does that feel? Tell me what that's like for you on a daily basis, right? What is the true cost of this in your life? All right? So really, really important. All right, I do have a few little case studies to drive home these points as we move through our presentation today. So this is my wonderful client, Sarah Fiera, who's a functional nutrition dietitian. And during our work together, she made the strategic decision to take fewer clients into her 6-month gut restoration program because she wanted to be able to invest more time with each person. And as a result, she decided to double her fees. And what was so interesting about this, I remember her saying this, that she was terrified, like, oh my gosh, no one is ever going to say yes again because I've doubled my fees here. However, once she specifically deepened the client's awareness of the pain they were experiencing as a result of their health issue, and she got them to that emotional place where they saw the true cost of their situation, she was able to immediately book. She got 4 yeses immediately, right in a row, and was able to generate around 15,000 in revenue right out of the gate. So I share this because it illustrates the power of helping your client understand how their current situation is spilling over and having a negative impact on their lives. And it enables them to conclude that staying stuck where they are is unacceptable. It's intolerable. And as a result, they're so much more motivated to grab that lifeline that you are offering them, right? All right. Now let's go to the third step, which is all about creating the vision. All right. So, very important. All right, so now let's move into the third step, which is helping that client create what we call the vision, right? Now, this language is pretty common in the coaching world. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about what they want instead, right? What their lives could look like if they were able to move towards resolution of these health issues. So, in other words, what are their goals and how would achieving those goals change their lives, right? How would that change things for them? So essentially, you want to be able to help them define in this rich, enlivened, kind of robust way where they want to be instead of where they are now, what they want to create for themselves, and what they want their health picture to look like. You want to be able to help them create the vision of what life will be like when these problems are solved. What would it feel like for them to be thriving, to be energized, to be happy? And you really want to give them space to paint that picture, right? Really, really effective. So here we're creating the vision. Your clients are looking to experience their life differently because they're tired of being sick, right? They're sick of being sick. So, when you're in the phase of this conversation, you may want to ask them a very powerful question. I actually love this question. And that is, what will you be able to do, be, or have at that time that you can't now? Very powerful. It's a question that gets people dreaming really big, and you want to be encouraging about how doable that is. And you've done it with, many, many clients already. And it really helps to equate this part of the conversation directly back to the specific negative impacts that we were sharing earlier. In other words, what would be the impact to their health, their energy, their marriage, their career, their ability, to play with their kids, their motivation level, etc. All the things we know that are causing them stress, we now get to reinvent a new future with them. And I will just remind you, we want to give them space to do the talking. One mistake that I sometimes see, it's very easy to do, is, we've got their intake forms and we're just kind of repeating back to them their symptoms and just kind of asking for a yes or no, right? In terms of confirmation. So you want to be careful about that, right? Because it doesn't put the person in that psychological, emotional state that we want them in. We want to give them a little space to feel their feelings and kind of think through it for themselves and articulate these things back to us instead of us just kind of assuming we know how they feel. All right, so the next part of the 6-step process is to boldly present your offer. And again, this is the part where most people get a little tripped up because they get really nervous. So I do want to try to demystify this for you. Remember, when you've got the right person in front of you, your ideal client, then your offer, your invitation is a very graceful and natural step for them to hear. If you've kind of played your cards right up to this point, working with you will be an obvious next step that aligns with everything you've been talking about so far with them. So, in this part, I want to be sure that I cover what not to do that really tends to kind of take the wind out of their sails. And believe it or not, you don't want to present your offer from a place where you're talking about all the logistics initially. Okay. What I mean by this is, saying, opening this segment, step 4, by saying something like, okay, so here's what we'll do. We'll start with a 2-hour meeting. Then, we'll do this lab and that lab, and then we'll meet again to review the findings and, et cetera, et cetera. Right. That, believe it or not, they do not care so much about your process. You care about your process. I care about your process. However, most patients and clients, not so much, right? Um, you all of a sudden kind of go from captivating and, kind of more of an emotionally oriented consult, talking about pain points, vision, and possibility, to boring in their eyes. So, what people really care about are results, the outcomes, what is in it for them. So, talking about like the logistics of your program is not going to help you, right? Instead, you want to say something like, I've got this program or package called X, and let me tell you what it's designed to help you to do, right? So you could say something like, okay, so Jill, after talking to you, I think I've got a clear understanding of where you're struggling in terms of your health, and I see where you'd like to go and what you want instead. I have a program called blank that is designed to help your body settle into its natural weight without feeling deprived or hungry. We'll start by putting together a personalized plan to help you to reduce your sugar cravings, to help you feel vibrant and healthy, so you have the energy to get through your day, et cetera, right? Um, Now, in that example, did you hear me present all of the results that are important to Jill? Notice I didn't say anything about the logistics yet. I just gave her an overview of what is in it for her, right? In this particular example. So, what I really want to drive home here is that I am modeling, a description. I'm asking you to spend a little bit of time talking about the results. You're pitching the results, you're not pitching the logistics right away. All right. And this really helps your client and your patient just to be so much more excited, right? When you elaborate on what you're going to do and how this is going to benefit them. And then, only then do you say, let me give you a quick rundown of the logistics, how this program is organized. Okay. So then at the last point in step 4, you'll present the investment. And do want to remind you to call it an investment because that is exactly what it is. Don't be afraid to ask them for the business by letting them know that you'd be delighted to work with them, right? So you do want to be very assertive in step 4. All right. So next, step 5 is to overcome what we call objections. Now, some of you may have heard this language before. Objections are things like, gosh, I wish I could, but I can't afford it. Or I just don't think the timing is right. Maybe next year would be better. Or I'm not sure my partner is going to go for it. So those are objections, reasons why people say they can't. Okay. And the first thing I want to let you know is that initial hesitation does not actually mean a hard no. I know that's shocking, but it really is true. And I'm going to share an example of that here in just a few moments. And I would say, in fact, that in many of these conversations, no, hearing a no is often a smokescreen that is masking an underlying fear. Okay. Let me explain a little bit more. So someone might say, I wish I could, but I can't afford it. Well, most of us find the funds. The reality is, and I do want to be clear, I know not everybody, this is not everybody, right? But let's just say many people are able to find a way to do the things they really value and the things that, we deem worth it. But there may be the person that is actually afraid. So sometimes you'll hear a no, but if you dig a little bit deeper in a loving, supportive way, what you're going to find out is maybe the person is actually afraid. Maybe they're afraid they're going to fail. They've tried before, it hasn't worked. So if they say yes, they're going to be that one person who invests in your program and screws it up, essentially. Right. So if you put yourself in their position, it can be a lot easier just to say, I wish I could, but I just can't afford it. Right. So you just see how sometimes it can be like what we call a smoke screen. And I just want you to recognize that if you stay with them from a place of curiosity and just probe a little bit deeper, you can ask them what's going on for them that's possibly getting in the way of the goals and dreams they've been saying very clearly that they want. You can often help them cross that bridge with you. So, if somebody had said earlier, this is the most important thing in my life, they told you about their pain points, they created this amazing emotional vision of what they want instead. And then later they say, gosh, I just can't afford it. It could be a great time for you to say something like this. So you might say, so Julie, may I ask you a question about that? I just want to point out that you had mentioned that how important this was to you. And you shared how this health issue is dramatically impacting so many areas of your life. Yet right now, you sound like you're in a different place. May I ask what is coming up for you? I sense perhaps a certain amount of fear or hesitation that might be going on under the surface. And I'd love to find out what might be going on. Would you be willing to share a little bit with me about what you're aware of? And the thing I want to point out is this is very supportive. It's a loving inquiry. All right. I'm not trying to change their mind. To be clear, I am not trying to change anybody's mind ever. Okay. I'm just helping that person get clearer on what's really happening for them and to potentially help them get out of their own way, right? Because again, they've already made it super clear in our conversation that they're suffering and that if they could resolve these health issues that they've described to you, their lives would change in so many positive ways, right? So we know they actually want to do the program, but again, sometimes fear, uncertainty, sometimes those things can get in the way of moving forward. And um, in which case, sometimes it's just easier just to say, I can't afford it. So I'm just suggesting that you do a little probing and approach it from curiosity. You can even say, I'm not here to change your mind. I truly want what's best for you, right? And that can kind of give that person a sigh of relief. Okay, she's not going to try to twist my arm. All right. So I do want to give you an example. This is a client that I worked with for quite a while. And this is Christy. She described how I can't afford it would stop her in her tracks, right? During these enrollment calls. She was in the cash model, had a really beautiful program or package. And she just describes the scenario where she would just feel like she was stumbling and fumbling over her words whenever she heard I can't afford it or a no. But after she mastered these strategies and really approached the conversation from a kind, gentle point of curiosity, right? She was able to fearlessly talk her potential client through this objection and what was going on underneath. And usually it was fear. She was able to as a result, in the very, very beginning of her learning this new skill, she was able to immediately enroll 7 new cash paying programs into her package. And she went from being uncomfortable, afraid, and nervous, in her words, about her consults to actually feeling excited about how the conversation would unfold. And she became confident that she could help her clients overcome the fear of moving forward, which was so, so gratifying to see. All right, number 6, the sixth and final step. So all right, so this one is called using stick strategies. And there is a critical window between when the client says yes to your services and that first day they have their appointment with you, right? There's a window where people can kind of fall back into fear and decide, you know what? Oh, what was I thinking? Maybe I shouldn't do this after all. And sometimes they second guess themselves and actually call to cancel, right? We don't want this to happen. So, stick strategies are just little things that we can do to help the process move forward. You could send new clients, a note saying how excited you are to get started with them. I will often send my clients an assessment right away, immediately, so they can begin experiencing the process of change and they feel like they're already underway, right? So they're much less likely to be seized by this, fear and remorse because, they're already moving forward. And the other thing is, schedule their first appointment ASAP, right? The minute someone says yes, you want to get out that calendar. I don't recommend you send them a link to your EMR and, go through all that because that just gives too much time for them to reconsider and change their mind. So, personally, I would recommend, even though it might feel like a little extra work in the moment, get out that calendar, get that first session booked into your calendar and take care of as many of those logistics as you possibly can right there in the moment. All right, so quick review of the 6 steps. Number 1, you want to adopt a winning mindset. Number 2, uncover the pain. Number 3, create the vision. 4, boldly present your offer. 5, overcome objections. And number 6, stick strategies. And so those are your 6 steps. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this next segment. And as we said earlier, no matter what marketing strategies you engage upon, again, whether it's SEO, a beautiful website, social media, public speaking, whatever you choose to do, the thing you must understand is that all of these roads lead to having a conversation with a potential client. So the idea is, of course, that you must be able to turn these consults into paying clients, right? And it does mean selling. However, it is selling with complete and total integrity, probably much more empathy than we're accustomed to showing. And, even feeling excited and joyful about having these conversations. I know that could be a big change for some folks. So take a look at my client, Jennifer. And so this is another example. I've got several, as I mentioned, of clients that have really embraced this 6-step process, and it really changed the trajectory of their business. So prior to learning my enrollment system, Jennifer really didn't get the true goal of the selling conversation. It just made her very discombobulated. In less than 2 months, she was able to master this new way of approaching it. Instead of being nervous, her consults are an authentic connection versus feeling like a sales pitch. And you can see the numbers there in terms of the results. So again, really driving home the point, if you can master this process and become, relatively good at it, you will see a significant spike in income, and you will have to talk to fewer people to achieve your financial goals. All right, let's just spend a little bit of time talking about objections. So it can be so frustrating when an ideal client who really needs your help gets cold feet, right? And they say, "Gosh, I'd love to work with you, but..." So what can you say to them when they say, "I can't afford it," or "I need to check with my significant other"? These again are called objections. And objections pop up very, very frequently. I would say, gosh, in many, many of the conversations that you'll have. So it's critical to understand how to maneuver through them. So it is not uncommon for potential clients to allow fear, objections, and excuses to cloud their confidence and conviction about making real change. And that is why I put together a free resource for you, so you can really ramp up your confidence and your ability to maneuver through these conversations and really help people at the end of the day, help them get out of their own way, right? To overcome the most common objections to working with you. And I feel strongly that your future clients will thank you for it. So you can just scan the code on your screen with your phone, or you can head on over to leslibitel.com/overcome dash objections, and that's plural, to download your copy. And I love this ebook. I got to tell you, I go into a lot of detail, like literally word for word scripts that you can use. Of course, I recommend that you modify them to make it feel natural, like, like words that you would actually say. But I also want to point out very clearly, this is never, ever about coercion. All right. It is about taking a stand for the client, knowing that deep inside they're craving change for the better. And remember, otherwise they wouldn't be having this conversation with you in the first place. So it's about really assuaging their fears and supporting them in supporting themselves. So very important. So, in this handy ebook, you're going to learn exactly how to answer when someone asks, "So, what do you charge?" Very common question, of course. The truth about what "I can't afford it" usually means, and how to turn this around into a yes into your services. We talked about this a little bit today, and I gave you a short example, but in the ebook, I go into way more detail. So I think it'll be really, really helpful. And what to say when someone says they need to check with their significant other or spouse before working with you. So I do think you get the most out of this report if you keep an open mind and just be willing to try on new ideas and strategies. Some of the suggestions might be new to you, some not, but these approaches have really formed the foundation of my own business success. And many, many, many of my clients, my integrative functional expert practitioners that I've worked with and coached over the last decade. So, really want to recommend that you download it and take a peek. And just another point of reference here, my dear client Susan Gleaton, after learning these skills, you know, increased her prices, a lot of change occurred very quickly for her. And she was able to very quickly move from practically no revenue to over 33,000 really in the first few months selling her packages and programs. And it's just such a great example of how she used the objection handling skills that she learned over and over again whenever she feels or wants to earn more income. So it really empowered Susan to, um, to feel confident, uh, empathic always, because actually this approach is, I would just say it's less clinical and more empathic than you might typically expect. We're saving the clinical work for the work, right? For the paid work. So I do want to be clear. This conversation, the basic purpose is to assess whether or not you are a good fit to work with this particular client, right? And so we're not doing the work for free. It's a little bit different, in terms of obviously the approach that we're taking. I would say it's not super, super hyper clinical. All right. So I invite you to grab your free copy. I really think this will be helpful. Word for word scripts to overcome I can't afford it and other objections. All you have to do is scan that QR code or head on over and type in leslibitel.com/overcome dash objections and you can grab your copy.
For any questions or issues, you may contact Avexia Diagnostics by email at info@avexiadiagnostics.com or by phone 5 days a week at extended hours, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time at 888-852-2723. Thank you, Leslie, for this informative presentation. Thank you again for joining us for this webinar event. Until next time, from everyone at Avexia Diagnostics, stay healthy, stay safe, and we wish you all the best on your pathway to wellness.